control. Her gravity is all that I know. She's over me. She's over me. She caught me with her hypnotic dance. She holds me here with only a glance. She's over me. She's over me. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, welcome to the Paranormal Portal Night Terrors, not Tight Errors, Night Terrors. I just tripped all over my fat tongue tonight. So welcome to the show, everybody. Hope you guys are doing great. Thank you so much for being here. We've got an extra special Night Terrors lined up for you. One that I'm really excited to do and bring to you. It's a Paranormal Portal first. It's again another crossover episode with our good friend Kade at the Believe podcast. Of course, he was with us last night. We had an excellent show, so we're going to have him as special guest host with me tonight on the Night Terrors, and we're going to tear it up, and we're going to hear some stories not only from the Portal, but also from the Believe podcast. So it's an epic night, and hopefully this will wet your guys' whistle to go out and make sure to check out the Believe podcast and get subscribed to him. Show him some love and support because, he's really doing the work. He's doing a great thing down there, and he's been a good friend to us on the show for quite a long time. So hope you all are ready because it's time for bed. All right, I'm back. This is it. We're actually live and underway here, ladies and gentlemen. Before we go any further, I'm going to welcome Mr. Kade Moir to the show. Welcome, brother. How you doing?
I'm good, mate. It's great to be back, and two episodes in a row, mate. This is I feel privileged. I really do.
Well, you should, because you'd be this is a Paranormal Portal first in that regard too. I mean, never had a guest on for 2 nights in a row, but it's an awesome opportunity, I think, for not only to introduce a lot of new listeners to what you're doing down there, but also just because you've been a great friend to us here on the Portal for a long time, and it's a lot of fun to work with you. So it's a double banger for me here.
Oh, mate, it's good all around because I always find every excuse that I can to block off that little bit of my day to listen to these stories and to listen to the show that you do with Mr. Longbeard each I guess alternative episode. So it's a bit of a pleasure to, I guess, fill in his spot here.
Your Kade 5 o'clock shadow. We'll go with that. But thanks, man, for making it another night. And it is really a cool experience. We've always had a lot of fun together. We had a lot of fun last night. It was a really fun show. It went really quick, huh?
Yeah, it did. It went insanely quick because I always hear you guys talking about, oh wow, this went so quick, and I'm kind of like, yeah, I've done half a website while watching you guys, and when you're in the thick of it, it just goes so quick. It's time flies when you're having fun, is what they say, don't they?
Yeah, that's what they told me, and I believe it for what that's worth. But no, we always have a good time here on the Portal. We like to have fun with it, because again, and I think that you do a real nice job on your show because you treat the paranormal with a lot of respect and a lot of sincerity. I think that there's, and this isn't me bagging on anybody's shows, but there's shows out there where they're overly dramatic and moody and try to, go for the whole dark theme and stuff. And that's cool and all, but I think the material's dark enough anyway, and it's kind of nice to come at it from a little brighter direction.
Yeah, absolutely. Because there's one thing that I noticed with, and you kind of just touched on that. A lot of podcasts want to touch on those like really scary encounters and things like that. Where I'm not afraid to put the more fun, the more lighthearted ones on there because not every paranormal encounter is going to be a scary one. I do believe, there's a little bit of personality when it comes to this type of thing.
Hmm.
And I think every ghost or every spirit out there isn't trying to scare you. It's just doing its thing.
Yeah.
And that thing might be a lighthearted thing. I have an episode coming out where a ghost kept pinching this lady on her bum. And she couldn't stop it.
The perverted ghost.
Absolutely, absolutely. It was probably some dirty old man,
I
and
was thinking the
supposed to
same
be a
thing.
spirit. That's the way it will go.
Some old guy trying to get some action. Oh my God.
Absolutely.
Some of my favorite episodes actually are when I've had the opportunity to cover real positive stories where ghosts have gone out of their way to be helpful to people and protective of people, and where they've shown up like angels and ghosts. And I mean, there are a lot of positive ones out there if you can find them.
Yeah,
They're not as easy to find because of course everybody goes for the dark, they go for the horror, they go for the sensational. But I think
absolutely.
to me, my favorite are the ones where it's just real positive and gives you a warm feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. Or it's the ones that have just a really beautiful outcome because, maybe someone didn't really get a chance to say goodbye to a loved member or a family member, something like that.
Yeah.
And they get that chance to do it because, I've had people come on and talk about they've had a chance to say goodbye to their granddad or their father, just because, circumstances weren't lining up where they were able to be in that same location to kind of have those last moments with them. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of good encounters out there, and I like to talk about them because they make you feel good.
Yeah, well, that exact thing happened to me, and so I know that those things happen. My dad passed away. I was living here, and I couldn't get home. It came on kind of sad. I mean, he'd been in tough shape for a long time, but we never knew when that other shoe was going to drop, and sure enough, it dropped. And long story short, my dad and I had. Yeah, I wouldn't say it was a bad relationship at all. I mean, I loved him. He loved me, and I knew that. But he was just a very stoic person, very unemotional, very strong, and he could sometimes be terse and stuff. And me, I'm more of a touchy feely, happy go lucky kind of person. So we'd bump heads. I mean, we're
Yeah,
two very different people, but it was really tough because all those things that accumulate throughout a lifetime when that hammer falls, that's it. That's the deadline. I mean, there's no more chances to build those bridges and to mend those fences and stuff. And so I was really carrying this brick in my heart for a long time, and I had a dream, and it was the most lucid, real dream I've ever had. And I was standing in my parents' home where he died, and all my family was around in the dream, but they were all doing different things. And suddenly I looked in the living room, and there was Dad, and he put his arms out, and it was this beautiful moment where I went up and embraced him. It smelled like him, it felt like him, it sounded like him. I mean, all of those nuances were there. All of those senses were alive in this experience. It wasn't just a dream where you may not be able to read anything, or you can't smell anything, or like all my senses were alive, and it was bright and colorful, and it was this beautiful moment. And we had that exchange, apologizing and professing our love, and it was really cool. And it was just like being able to, I woke up and just, tears just coming down. And it was like in that moment, and I believe it was real. In that moment, it was like I was able to put down this block that I'd been carrying for so long. And it was just really healing and cool.
that's amazing. That's a really beautiful encounter, a beautiful story, and that kind of gives you closure to everything that happened between you and your father, and he got soft and he hugged you, mate.
He went all soft on me, see? Nah,
That's
yeah,
it.
he did. It was cool. But that's the beauty of it, is that I've had a lot of different experiences, as we've discussed many times that we've talked. And that's why I think part of this passion And I know this is going a different direction than our usual night terrors, but that's okay. I always treat the shows like a conversation. Where we end up, we end up. But I think that that's part of the reason that I'm so passionate about doing the shows is because I've had these experiences. And on the other side of them, you have so many questions. As we discussed last night, you get more questions than you do answers. But that's why I'm so excited to dig into what other people are experiencing, talk about them, interview people, hear their thoughts, and I'm just on this kind of this journey, and I think maybe we all are.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I just love that everyone's encounters are different, and everyone's perspectives of what they encounter is different. So it's always just so open to interpretation, and I genuinely love the fact that we may never ever know. So there's always that romanticized mystery around the paranormal.
Yeah, yeah. You know what? That just gave me an idea too. By the way, bringing up that story of my dad because it goes much further than that.
Oh yeah.
After he passed, yeah, he's been showing up at my mom's house, turning on his old TV, and yeah, I'll put together an episode and let you check it out. It's kind of in pieces and parts all over the place. I've gone through it a few times, but yeah, there was so much that happened that definitely he's been around. And when you hear the whole chain of events, if you haven't already, maybe you've caught it. I don't know, but yeah, I mean, it is. It's very very cool. But
Yeah, that'll be interesting. It'll be like just kind of putting everything together, and that's something that you can always just go back to and enjoy for yourself.
yeah, yeah, and I think I'd like to do that because as it exists now, it is in pieces and parts in different places. So I think it'd be cool to pull it all together into one episode, name it as such that it's always there for posterity. Because what an amazing experience. But enough about me. So as you're saying, you do hear from a lot of people and a lot of listeners, and they send you in some stories. And I know that part of what we're doing tonight, ladies and gentlemen, is Cade's going to bring some of his stories to the table, and I'm going to just bring some more ghost stories to the table, and we're going to just have fun with it. But I'll let you lead the way since you're the guest.
Yeah, perfect, mate. So look, I've got a couple of stories that we can talk about, and I've actually brought a bit of a mix because I know you like to tell a lot of ghost stories on these types of live streams. So I figured I'll bring a couple of different little stories. So I think the first one that I will kick it off with is an alien slash unexplained experience, and this actually comes from your neck of the woods over in the United States. So,
Oh, nice.
just a little fun fact is a lot of the listeners of my show, they don't write in big stories. They give me these like little tiny tidbits. But anyone from the States, they write me novels, and it takes me so long to get through them.
Yeah, brother. Well, those are great stories, though.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, look, I'll get started on this one, and excuse me because I am an absolutely terrible reader. I swear I'm half dyslexic. So if I start buggering things up, you'll have to I guess be patient with me. So
No worries.
we'll get into it.
No worries, man. Just relax and have fun with it.
That's it. That's it. All right. So my name is Jason. I'm 34 years old and live right smack bang in the center of the United States of America. Here's my unexplained experience. When I was 6, and this was in 1990, a couple of days after Christmas, I came down with the cold or a flu. I remember on New Year's Eve having a fever so high that I was essentially bedridden on the couch in the living room, actually. The windows were behind the couch, and I laid there for hours, taking turns puking, staring at the stars, and puking some more. Lovely. While my mother was watching the countdown on TV, I glanced outside once more and saw 3 bright orange lights in the sky. They were in the shape of a triangle and looked to be pretty high up. They moved in unison and not breaking formation, slowly across the blackness, never changing colors or blinking or fading away. The whole sighting was maybe 3 minutes long. I think I passed out afterwards because the next thing I remember was waking up in a pool of sweat, full of energy and feeling like $1,000,000 to a bright and sunny morning. To this day, I'm not sure what I saw or if it was even real or a hallucination, but the memory of the event has been crystal clear in my mind for decades since it happened. As far as I know, the only real-life sighting I've ever had. Here's the truly weird part though. For the next 3 years, I had an alien abduction dream once a month, like clockwork. The
Wow.
dream was the exact same time every night, and it was the closest thing to night terrors I've ever seen. Hey, there you go. We're matching the brand.
That's
The
cool.
dream itself, and my heart still races just envisioning it, was unique in its own way. It was Christmas Eve in the dream, and my mother's whole side of the family gathered into a small, cramped house I've never been in before. It was night outside, and I could see a comfortable suburb community through the front windows. I'd only live in crap houses in a big city. That's in brackets. So he's obviously not one for the suburbs. Everything was dark. I mean, there were lights everywhere, but all the lights were dim. Anyways, we started opening gifts and eventually came to the last ones. Small boxes, about the size of a baseball, for each of the grandchildren. We all opened them at the same time, and in each side of them was a bouncy ball. Super, super bouncy, super rubbery. They're known by a lot of names. I know that might be a thing over in the States. We just call them bouncy balls over here, I guess. Each of us grandkids had a different color, and as soon as we touched them, they burst into flames. Mine was a vibrant, deep, burnt orange, the same color and intensity as the lights from the day when I was sick. This sounds a little bit like Harry Potter, if you ask me. The flames were warm, but they didn't burn us. We were able to hold them as if the flames didn't exist. When we bounced them, they went on forever, from floor to ceiling, wall to wall, all over the place till they were caught. This definitely has some Harry Potter themes to it. It sounds like a snitch, if you ask me. If you recall the scene in the Men in Black movie where Will Smith first walks into the MIB headquarters and touches the ball, you'll see exactly what I'm describing, or they just weren't as destructive as they were portrayed here. In my haste to try new things and play with my new favorite toy, I ran to the front door and swung it open. I yelled out, "Watch this," to my family and bounced the ball off the front step and it ricocheted into the sky. My entire family was screaming no at me, but it was too late. The ball flew into the sky and exploded. The bright whitish yellow light, like a nuke going off. There was no heat, no blast, but just this searing, blinding light. When it dimmed, there was a ship, and it wasn't the triangle you'd expect from my original sighting. I wasn't expecting that at all. It was a saucer, not a boomerang or even cigar-shaped. It kind of looked like an acorn. I'm not really sure what an acorn looks like. I have a vague picture, but it's not really anything that we see over here in Australia.
Okay.
And it was flipped upside down, cut in half, and smushed. That's very detailed. I can draw detailed pictures of it to this day. The image of it is burnt into my memory, but I have so much trouble actually describing it to people. I get that a lot when it comes to UFO encounters. They can kind of say what it looks like, but they can't really say what it was. There was a large flat window on the side of the ship facing us, and I could distinctively see 3 alien forms looking through at me. The inside was lit up, and all the forms in the windows looked like the classic greys that are usually depicted in movies and stories. I just stared. My grandfather grabbed me from behind and pulled me back into the house and kicked the door shut. Immediately, floodlights started flooding through the windows. My family scattered, hiding in every spot in the house they could. Closet, the bathroom, the food pantry, anywhere, and everywhere the light could not shine on them. I was left to find my own spot. That's savage. My heart was racing, pounding out of my chest. I was crying and screaming in fear, running all over trying to hide. That is absolutely savage by that family in this dream. The lights shone to whatever windows I went anywhere near, and it was absolutely terrifying. When I made it to the back bedroom, I attempted to run under the bed, maybe crawl under it. I think you'd crawl, mate. The light caught me through the window, and I froze in fear. At that point, my memory goes blank. Maybe I just wake up. Maybe there's something repressed. I don't really know. But I can honestly say that I've had thousands of nightmares in my life, most of them extremely dark and scary. Not one nightmare has ever felt as real, as horrific as that one. As I grew up, I dismissed all the simple childish fear that my brain played around while I was sleeping. Then I had the dream again when I was 20, the night of New Year's Eve of all times, and again when I was 31. The more confused, the more confused about the whole thing than ever. I think he means I'm more confused about this whole thing more than ever. I've become obsessed with researching crop circles, abductions, and sightings. I still don't know the truth, but I'm about 80% sure that aliens exist and have visited our planet. I'd like to see how he's got that charted out and how he measures that percentage. Also, also, on a maybe related note, since I was 20, I've had a small lump on the back of my neck and another in the middle of my back, just on the right of my spine. The doctors I've seen have taken a look at it and have no explanation other than they are skin knots. They offered no ideas on what caused them. Only two places on my body where such skin deformities exist, and they both align perfectly on the central nervous system. He hasn't written that quite well. The whole thing is damn weird. The whole thing is weird as hell, and I don't know if I'll ever truly know what happened or caused it. Finn.
Wow.
That's interesting. That definitely sounds like some lucid dreaming going on there. That's a perfect kind of segue into that, really, isn't it?
It is. It is. Now I'm putting on the screen a picture of acorns, just so you know.
Okay, that would be great. 2 minutes of research before me might have been fantastic, but
Nah, that's what Google's for, or Yahoo in this case. But yeah, no, I mean, it's what you got to wonder is that, as we kind of touched on last night, our brains cope with things in their own unique way. So is that the culmination of this dream? It's like maybe not accurate to what actually happened, but maybe that's how his mind, I don't know, protected itself. I mean, you hear about things like, sudden amnesia, where people are gone through something so terrible that their mind just goes, nope, we're not remembering that. And of course, there's also the projection and displacement kind of psychology where, we translate it to something else in our minds to make it more palatable, or so that we don't, crack our psyche in the process. But I wonder if that's the case. Like whatever he experienced, it was being symbolically represented by what is in that dream, and to have the same dream over and over and over. Is that what he was saying? Is that every time it's the same?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, it sounded like he was having it quite regularly, but the older he got, the less often he would have that. And I don't know. Maybe he's being taken. Maybe something else has happened in his life, and this is, like you said, like a mask memory or something like that. Because I'm sure if you're a psychologist or something like that, I'm sure there's lots of red flags potentially in something like this where I see a lot of connections between his family potentially abandoning him or something like that, because that seemed like a pretty savage thing to do in a dream like that.
Yeah, it does. That'd be like the ultimate betrayal. Like, really, you're all just bailing on me?
yeah, absolutely. So it's I don't know, it's spooky, and that kind of, it's the fear of unknowing what would, if something's happened or something hasn't happened, is probably the scarier part of that, because it just leaves this absolutely unknown about yourself, and it's just like,
Wow.
I know what you would do.
Yeah, I don't know either, man. That's intense. I hope it's all worked out okay for him, or that he's come to a good place. It sounds like he's diverted his energy and attention into really getting into the topic of UFOs and alien visitation and stuff. And I think that stuff is incredibly compelling, but that's a hell of a rabbit hole too. I mean, God, there's so many layers to that.
Yeah, there is, and it's one of these things where you can just go on absolutely massive tangents, because depending on what you're interested in, you could find yourself going down an Illuminati type of,
yep, black projects, Illuminati, and there's so many layers to it. Government cover-ups, conspiracies, and then the actual phenomena itself. Are they here? Have they infiltrated? Are they right among us, disguised? I mean, it really makes you question the fabric of our reality at some point. It's like, everywhere you turn, there's possibility, and that's pretty, unnerving for me. That's one of the reasons that, I'm very interested in all of this, but at some point you have to make a judgment call. It's like, God, how deeply can I go into this, and am I prepared for what I might find? And quite honestly, I don't know if I am, to be quite frank.
Yeah, I had a really great guest. He's actually a good friend of mine now, because we just bonded so well over his stories. He actually directed a documentary called Trackers on Australia's Bigfoot, and that's coming out in a couple of weeks actually. So keep an eye out for that.
Mm-hmm.
But he went down a rabbit hole on UFOs, and it said it just like engulfed his life. It's so easy for this to just take over everything, and it really does affect you, and it affected his family, and everything was just getting a little bit too real for him, and he absolutely just had to step away from everything.
Yeah,
because it was engulfing him, which is, I guess that's reality when you go too deep.
yeah, that's what and that's exactly the way I feel. It's like that's one of the reasons I don't dive too deep into it. Like spirits and stuff, to me, I think everybody's familiar with spirits. Everybody knows somebody or has had themselves some kind of weirdness. It may not be an actual haunting, but they've seen something odd that they can't put their hands around. And I think that we are inundated and surrounded by that, that we are swimming in a world of spirits. But you start looking at people coming from other places, and what is their agenda, and what are is there a secret agreements between them and governmental agencies, and are they picking people up and experimenting? And oh, good Lord, it's just I mean it's just so heavy.
It is, and it's one of those things that if you go down there and you learn something, you just can't unlearn it. That's in your head forever as well.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Wow. Well, I'm going to do one next because I can see we're burning. We're almost at 7:30 and we've only got through one story. Can you believe it?
Oh goodness, I'll choose shorter ones. I'll try.
No. That was wonderful. It's not a matter of volume. Believe me, we don't have to read more than two if we don't want to. But the discussion's great and that's perfect. But I just see how easy it would be to go to a 3-hour show in a hurry. But we're not going to do that, obviously. But this one is coming from California, and it has to do with family, friends, visits. It says, I recently had an experience that I've had a hard time understanding. I had been seeing this figure, the typical black, not a shadow, but a solid, but not solid either, figure, for a few months, and I thought nothing of it. I could often explain it away, but after it happened too many times to explain away, I just think, oh, there it is again. Nothing to worry about. It didn't leave me with any feelings. It had a tendency to hide around corners. I'd be walking around a corner, and in front of me or peeking out from behind a corner of the hallway, I'd see it at school, at home, the grocery aisle, everywhere. It happened maybe once a week. I hadn't thought anything of it until a recent experience, which was unlike anything I'd ever experienced before. Let me preface this by saying I have only one person in my life who I know very well who has passed, and that was my aunt. I look very similar to her, and we have a lot in common. People had a hard time telling us apart in photographs, and I have wanted to meet her again ever since I had started seeing spirits. What's the point of just putting up with them if I can't see the one person that I actually care about? It's been maybe 8 years since she died of cancer, and I was in the other room when she actually passed away. I was in the bathroom brushing my hair, and when I looked into the mirror and saw her, well, not her exactly. It was me I saw, and I couldn't tell if I was looking at myself or my aunt. I stared into the mirror, waiting for my mind to make itself up, but I couldn't decide, and I blinked. I looked away, but she was still me. But she was still me when I turned my eyes once again to the mirror. I stood there for a long time, but I didn't know what to do, and I was starting to get freaked out, so I just left. I think the shadow and my aunt are connected, but I haven't seen either since the mirror that day. Did I miss my chance to contact her? I've never tried to contact someone before. Should I try? If you don't know what you're doing, don't try. That's my biggest advice. So she saw the shadow.
A lot of bad stuff in there.
Yeah, you just don't know. I mean, if you're not prepared to be careful and to know what to do and how to protect yourselves, I really don't encourage people to go looking for things that they're not ready for. How many times have you heard those tales?
It's what Hollywood movies are made out of, mate. You always look at those people and you're like, why are you doing that? Don't do that.
Don't go in the basement. What are you doing?
Yeah, come on, use some common sense.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that people are taking from our pop culture the idea with with so many spiritual and ghost shows out there and investigators, they think that I've watched 5 seasons of Ghost Adventures. I'm set. I'm ready. And it's just not. it's not that simple. And when you listen even to those guys, and now I don't know how legitimate it is. I assume there's legitimacy to what they're doing to some degree. I think there's also some fancy editing because it is an entertainment show, and they have to keep people entertained. But in the interviews, they've all pretty much talked about when things followed them home, when they've dealt with things at their house, and attachments and potential possessions, and so it's not something that people should go into lightly, but it's interesting. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's something that I would say you would avoid if you could, because unless you are, I would say, a professional. So, if you are a professional investigator in the paranormal field, you know exactly what you're doing. You're very well connected to, to spirits, to other realms, things like that. It would be something I would steer clear of, because you
Oh, hold on, brother. We're getting a leg spike.
get
We got a leg spike with Kade. So hold on, everybody.
there's a team here in Australia.
Uh-oh. Are you there?
Yeah. You hear me?
Okay. Yeah, you were just jumbled up for the last minute or so.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I don't know how much came through, but essentially, I said to keep it short is get a professional in to help you with that.
Yeah.
There's paranormal teams in every city that, well, if they're not in your city, you'll be able to find someone fairly close to help you out. And I would let them deal with it. Don't try and take this on yourself, because unless you're a professional and you know what you're doing, you could be opening up a whole, I guess you're opening Pandora's box is the best way to think of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it is. I think you're right. You are absolutely right, and that's a good reference or a good metaphor for it. It's the Pandora's box, because you don't know what you're getting into. You don't know what you're dealing with. Even professionals don't always know what they're dealing with. And
Yeah.
I say that because everybody's been dealing with demons everywhere they can go, and I don't believe that for a minute. But that's neither here nor there. But yeah, brother, you got another one?
Yeah, look, I have a shorter UFO story, because I'm always a sucker for a UFO story. Ghost stories are,
Oh, sure.
you can have all the ghost stories. I'll have all the freaky UFO things. So
Amen, brother.
all right. So one evening I was out by my pool enjoying a warm October in 2012, and this was just before dusk. My son and wife were there with me, and I was pointing out aircraft to my son when an extra craft came into view. I'd have to draw this so it makes real sense. Fortunately, he didn't actually do that. We are below the northern flight path for most flights from Sydney, heading north to the rest of the world. I have friends that are commercial pilots, and I use the app Flight 24. That's a free plug. You can bleep that out. So I know about flight paths, and you can clearly see and hear the planes as they go over at around 30,000 feet. I know what a jet looks like and sounds like. I know the flight paths. We're also near the main F-18 Hornet base, among other craft, of which I've watched for over 20 years in this area. I have an interest in planes since I was young, and know that a plane, a helicopter, and a drone look and sound like, and I own a drone, so I know the difference. We were joking around saying the planes might crash into each other when a new craft came from the southwest, and it was all light and only around 100 meters off the ground and only about 200 meters from me. That's close.
Mm-hmm.
I did a double take trying to identify if the light was like the color and the brightness of a car headlight. The yellowish light was projecting out from the craft, but unable to escape the craft, so it didn't light up the ground around it. But looking straight at me, it was only as hard as looking at a car headlight from the same distance, only the light didn't reach me. While trying to process this, I was trying to tell my son and wife it was a plane, so not to freak them out. It was about the size of a medium helicopter without the rotor or the tail shaft. It glided with zero friction from the air that it was almost impossible to describe unless you have seen it. Nothing was having an effect on it. No gravity, no air, nothing interacted with it. It was moving at around 60 kilometers an hour and was easy to watch. That's quite slow if something's in the air.
Yeah.
The most interesting thing is that it passed me, and I could look at it from the rear, and I could clearly see a cylinder inside the light, really, really red in in the center and pinker out to the edges, like it was hot. The light seemed to jut out of the main body area of the craft in triangular beams moving in and out, up and down, and it was just dancing all around the craft. I believe something was wrong with it, otherwise it would have been moving faster, and the light would have covered it in the rear, and I wouldn't have got such a good look at it. It also seemed to be slowly climbing in altitude, but struggling to do so. No little green men, sorry, but a very interesting event. I often look out the window, but I've never seen another one since. The only other thing I've noted is that it was completely silent and I could still hear the jetliner at 30,000 feet. That's interesting.
That really is. What do you think about the idea that well, there's several of these kind of things are actually, advanced projects, black projects, possibly reverse engineered, but, what is your thoughts?
Oh, I reckon it would make up for a huge percentage of lights in the sky, to be honest.
Sure.
Because you have a look at when the South Bomber was getting built way back in the day, and they were doing test flights on that, and the UFO reports were skyrocketing through the roof. There was calls coming in from all over the country, and when it all came out, it was kind of revealed that the South Bomber was a large contributor to all of that. So when you think of these things where there's potentially helicopters, and this all kind of happened when I think Osama bin Laden was captured, that they use silent helicopters to sneak into the base, and we haven't heard a single thing from that since. I don't know if you have, but I know I haven't.
No, not a word. Not a word, and I'm really curious what that means because, if it's a rotor and it's creating lift by grabbing air and pushing it, how does it not make noise? Well, how are they doing that silently? And so it makes you wonder about some alternative propulsion that's being utilized there. I know that when one of them apparently crashed, they basically wiped it out with missiles and stuff or bombs, so that none of that technology could be captured by whoever found the crash site. But there's something going on for sure. I mean, I think we've all heard the adage that the military's at least in computer terms, technological terms, they're 30 or 40 years ahead of us. Yeah. Now, if 30 or 40 years ago, we were using like Apple IIs in class, with a monochrome display. Meanwhile, now we're using internets with multi-threaded processors and graphic cards, and we're streaming movies and videos. So this is where they were back then. Yeah. So where are they now? I mean, what can they do now? And it's just wow.
It really makes you wonder, and it kind of, I know it kind of takes away the beauty and the mystery of what these lights in the sky might be. But I also kind of find that might even be a little bit more interesting to see the hidden things that are kind of going on here.
Right. The only concerning part of it, I mean, it's encouraging to think that, we've developed those kind of things, whether, through incidents like the Roswell crash and reverse engineering or whatever. And I think that that's definitely got to be the case. But the point is I do like the idea that we might have developed those kind of technologies, because I think it creates another opportunity for us to, not to I don't know, perhaps help mankind. But the problem is that we're not aware of them. And there's a select group of people who seem to be, but they're not interested in sharing it. So, that's concerning, of course, because if we have the technology to travel to the stars and maybe, potentially build habitations out there, then maybe we should. Maybe that's, if there's some people think there's too many people here. Well, let's start, sending people out to see what they can find. I mean, hell, I'd go, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Oh, mate, if you could come back from that, and there was like a way to, make sure it was foolproof, 100%.
Yeah,
mate, I'll be throwing my hand up in a heartbeat for sure.
Yeah, I mean, if it was like Star Trek and stuff, I'd go check out Romulan space or whatever. I don't know.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that to me is exciting that we could touch the stars and we could go out there and see these phenomena for ourselves. And what could we learn? You know, how much could we learn? But you know, it's all hypothetical. Of course, we just don't know. But there's a lot of apparently a lot of data to support the idea that there are some seriously advanced craft being developed. The TR-3Bs, of course, come to mind, and they, for all intents and purposes, are a UFO in that they're running silently, they're levitating, they're using some kind of other propulsion that we're not seemingly aware of. And
Yep.
who was it? The ruler of, or the not the ruler, but the guy, was it Ben Rich from Lockheed Martin, said that we have the technology to take ET home.
Oh wow.
You know, it's like, wow, that's a hell of a statement to make. You know,
Absolutely. Got to
yeah,
back that up.
yeah,
Prove it.
right, yeah, exactly. But very, very cool. I'll get to another story here quick, unless you want to just roll through because I know you've got a lot of material to go through, and I don't want to clog it up with my usual stuff.
I know. I like your usual stuff. I want to hear some stuff from you because the next two I've kind of got they're quite long, and
Okay.
I might have to see if I can find a bit of a shorter one that might be a little bit more appropriate.
Okay. Well, this one's coming from Louisiana, and it has to do with family, friends, visits. And this person says the last first story I wrote about was my dad's death and the hooded figure. This story is about my dad smoking. Well, it says daddy, but I'm not going to say daddy. My stepfather smoked cigarettes, brand Western. My father smoked Marlboro, and this is significant to my story. It was last year before summertime. One night, as I was sat in front of the computer typing, I smelt a strong smell of cigarette smoke coming from the right side of the window and the computer desk. My stepfather smokes, but he smokes outside, so it was not his cigarette I was smelling. If he was outside having a smoke, my window was closed, so the smoke could not have filtered in. The smoke smelt like that of the cigarettes my father smoked, Marlboro. I thought to myself, yep, and said, hello, Dad. Did my dad come and see how I was? I've been real mean to my family. Jeez. They've been driving me crazy. I was the only child. I was Daddy's girl. My dad and I were very close, and it hit me hard when he died. I know he always will be around, and I know whenever my time comes, I'll be with him. And I've had health problems since I was 16. I've been sick all the time, and now I have to take a shot every 5 weeks. That gets real editorial there, doesn't it? So this is a tough one, and here's the problem: is that Marlboro is not an uncommon brand. I mean, it's probably one of the most popular brands in the United States.
Yeah.
And someone could have walked by the house and been smoking that. I used to smoke, and as such, now I'm really sensitive to it in that I can smell it. It doesn't usually bother me that much, but I can pick it up and I can be following a car on the freeway and smell when they're smoking. Yeah, no doubt. True story. But I think that it's comforting to think that, oh, I smelled Marlboro, my dad must be here. And that's a beautiful thing. And I wouldn't want to take that away from that person that wrote this. But I think with things like that, it's really hard to substantiate in any way because, if you live in any area where people are, you could very well be smelling Marlboro at any time.
Yeah, absolutely. It's and you hear this a lot when it comes to paranormal encounters that people smell certain things that remind them of a person that's passed or something like that. And I know I'm always like saying these things to debunk things, but a lot of this could also be explained to medical conditions because if you have a problem with your heart, if you have signs of a stroke happening, you will smell things, and that could be a sign of an underlying medical problem that you potentially have. So whenever I see these stories, I always make sure I just say to the person, make sure you just go get checked because there may be something that's happening here that is that you can have that paranormal story to yourself, and that's fantastic, but you can potentially be having something that could be a medical episode that you're just not aware of yet.
That's a good point. I'd never thought of that, but that's great advice because, of course, you're right. I've heard of that where people are smelling. I can't think of any correlations like when this, people often report smelling this, but I know I've heard that that is a very real medical phenomena. So that's good advice, really good advice.
Yeah, and because it's so easy to get caught up in the romanticized idea of, oh, that was my dad, that was, that was my auntie, that was, someone that I love is coming back to visit me,
Sure.
and I would hate for someone to ignore those very key signs that maybe something terrible is actually about to happen to you.
Yeah, that's a great point. Good call.
But I mean, if those are genuine encounters, that's amazing because it really does play on the mind of like how the memory works and how one distinct smell will just make you remember that one person, and I
Right.
think that's fantastic.
Yeah, it is. I think it's really strong. Now, as I was telling you in my dream, I smelt my dad in the dream, but I also saw him and felt him. So it wasn't just a one sense kind of experience. It was this, it inundated all of my senses. So,
Yeah.
but just a really cool experience. But yeah, scent. What do they call that? Claire. I can't remember. There's a Claire that has to do with smelling, and I can't remember. I can't ever keep the Claires. Uh, I can't ever keep them.
Out of all of them, that would be the worst one to have.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. Because what if it is a demon? What do you smell
Yeah.
then? I think I might have smelled some in the bathroom. Sorry,
Well,
that
that's
was.
exactly it. And if Don was around, all you'd be smelling is bacon everywhere.
He's got this beard oil that is like a sage and something, and it's the way he describes it. It's almost like a marinade. It's like that's not beard oil. You're just rubbing marinade on your beard.
That's just sauce.
Sauce. That's perfect. That's perfect. All right, brother, what you got?
All right, I have a Yowie encounter here. So I'll
Excellent.
get right into this one because it is a little bit longer. So
Sure.
I was camping with two friends of mine and a few of one of their family members on a property that they simply called Bush Block. The property is located around a very small town of Hotspur in Victoria, close to the Crawford River and the Crawford River Regional Park. One thing that people should know is Australia has regional parks like there's no tomorrow.
Oh,
I couldn't tell you how large it was, but it was huge, with gated access on a dirt road and the rear of the property backing onto a eucalyptus plantation. Fun fact we'll talk about later about eucalyptus eaters. Right there, Brent.
oh,
the property
absolutely.
the property is owned by one of my friend's uncles, and the only building on the property is a small and quite old one-bedroom cabin. There is no mains power, but they have a generator to power some lights, and the water comes from a main large rain tank. The cell reception is pretty crap there too. Occasionally, my uncle hosted a family event on the property in the clearing around the cabin, but this has happened about once a year, and at best, I camped there. That didn't really make sense. But this happened once a year, and at best, at a time I camped there. At time of writing this, there's now it's much more common with about 300 people that go to the event. That's a big family.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, the area was pretty bare and any kind of structure bare of any kind of structures, and there was a single dam on the property. And other than that, the only other cleared area of the trees was surrounding the cabin. So it's obviously got a lot of bush around it. The experience itself happened after we set up a tent and gone to bed for the first night. My friend's family stayed in the cabin and the car, and one of his brothers slept by himself in a swag on the other side of the clearing in the bushland. And essentially, a swag is like uh, a heavy duty sleeping bag that is like half a tent built in. They're pretty full on.
Okay.
We set up about 300 meters from the cabin in the bush. We sat around a little campfire as you do when you're camping and headed into bed around 11 p.m. It wasn't until about 2 a.m. when I was awoken by sounds outside the tent. It sounded like there was an animal circling the tent slowly, and it sounded quite large. I couldn't tell if it was on all fours or two legs, as sometimes it sounded like it was switching between the two. Occasionally, it would stop and sniff. It wasn't incredibly close to the tent, but it was close enough that I could hear it sniffing. At this point, I woke my friends up and I was starting to freak out. Whatever continued to circle around with heavy footsteps. Whatever it was, it continued to circle around with heavy footsteps, but never came closer to the tent than it already was. This continued on and off for about 10 minutes, and then it broke its silence and started to make this deep and guttural growling noise. It sounded very loud, and whatever it was making it sound quite large. We've heard koalas before, and this wasn't a koala. The growling changed and became a louder sound, almost like a really rough laughter. It was really hard to describe, but it sounded like it came from deep within the chest. This absolutely terrified all of us, and we lay absolutely still for about 30 minutes while slowly it moved away into the bush. The only way I can describe how I felt at this point is that I was completely paralyzed in fear, and I've never felt like that before. That's full on.
That is full on. Wow.
I, I couldn't imagine being more vulnerable stuck in a tiny little Kmart tent
Oh.
out in the bush while this huge creature is walking around you growling.
Yeah, I can't think of a worse situation to be in either. I mean, because you're laying down, but you have no protection whatsoever other than some fabric and some little flexible sticks. So which is no protection at all. So,
Oh,
if
and
something's bent on hurting you, it's going to hurt you.
well, that's right. That's right. It would the thoughts that would go through your mind in a situation like that, because see, Australia hasn't got any predatory creatures at all. We're like really really lucky in that sense. I mean, we have all the tiny little bugs and kind of creepy crawlies that can kill you quite easily, but in the sense that there's not like going to be a bear jumping out of the bush to eat you or anything like that. So in our perspective, that would be hugely terrifying in the sense that there's something out there that is predatory.
But don't you get Crocs though? Those things will take you down.
Oh yeah, but as long as you run in a zigzag, they can't catch you.
Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Just make sure you're running
Yeah.
in a zigzag in Australia, and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Unless you're confronted with a drop bear.
Oh, the almighty drop bear.
Ladies and gentlemen, what we're getting to is after the show last night. I forgot to ask Kate a question. I was like, oh my god, I forgot to ask you. What about drop bears? What the hell's the story with those things? Well, let us know, Kate. Fill us in on what is it with drop bears?
So okay, let's give the listeners a little bit of context. What did you think a drop bear was?
I thought it was some kind of massive koala looking thing that would launch out of the trees and like attack people and kill them and drag them off or something. I mean, that's the context that I've always heard about it in, is this horrible thing coming out of trees and wrecking everybody's day.
Yeah. Look, that's the myth that we like to put out there, because, and I see, being part of I guess the world's biggest lie of drop bears is we don't actually know how you guys would perceive them. So essentially, drop bears don't exist. They're made up. It's a fun little made up story that literally everyone in Australia is in on, and it's just a koala bear. They have these huge talons because they have to climb these trees that are basically covered in like a really soft bark, so they have to dig in quite hard.
Sure.
And yeah, they're just fake. It's just a normal koala bear. And I was telling you guys that maybe the drop bear myth started because drop bears eat eucalyptus tree leaves, and they get drunk off the oil that's in the leaves. So they're basically just they're pissed. They're drunk all the times, and maybe it just fell out of a tree and landed on someone and gave them a little scratch.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. We've demystified the drop bears right here on the Paranormal Portal, and
That's it.
That's
and not a
pretty
real.
cool. Not real. Though I was disappointed to hear that. I mean, happy, but because by the sounds of it, that's definitely one that you don't want to be real. That's a horrible thing.
Yeah, and I mean, if you've ever heard a koala in the bush, it does give a lot of credence to that. This thing is a very fierce creature, because they sound terrifying, man.
I'm going to try to find a soundbite of a koala. Because if you haven't heard a koala, ladies and gentlemen, you would not think of that little teddy bear thing making this sound. It's a horrible sound. They sound absolutely terrible. Little koala bear sounds. Let's see what I can find here. Yeah, I won't put it on screen, but I'm just going to play it. So prepare yourselves, ladies and gentlemen. Yep, there it goes. All right, I'm going to push play. Oh God. Yeah. Text. Let's see. I don't know if you can hear it, Kade, but so there you go. For those of you on YouTube, you heard that. Kate didn't because it doesn't go through Skype. I got to talk to you about that, by the way. I want to see how you're doing that because that would be great if I could send it over too. When we're connected to the network, I can't really play a lot of multimedia stuff because it's
Right.
yeah, it's I can't get it to carry over. So I'll talk to you about it later. But yeah, that's a
Geek out
koala.
afterwards.
They don't sound cute and fluffy and cuddly.
No, not at all. I mean, someone actually in the chat, Duke, he actually said koalas sleep 22 hours a day, are bad-tempered, and smell terrible too. And they also have chlamydia. They're disgusting.
I don't even want to know how that's all worked out or yeah.
Yeah. It's just gross. They look, cuddle them from afar, give them a pat, and that's about it. But yeah, they're super super gross animals.
Oh wow. So won't that kill them? Doesn't chlamydia kill eventually? I don't know. I really don't
Yeah.
know. Huh.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things, you know. It's gross. If you're a bit sad about the koala being gross and disgusting, go look into wombats. They're a much nicer animal.
Are they really? Or are you being cheeky?
No.
Oh, okay.
Wombats are fantastic. They're like these big fat type of like almost dog-like creatures, and they just burrow in the ground, and there were stories of wombats saving other animals, taking them into their burrows when the bushfires were happening. So you know they're also Aussie battler heroes.
Oh yeah, they look like I'm gonna put them on screen so everybody can see a wombat. But they look like little. I mean, they do look kind of like cuddly teddy bears, don't they?
Yeah, no, they're a fantastic animal. I really do like the wombat. It's my spirit animal. It's an animal that eats and sleeps.
Well, they're pretty big though too, aren't they? I mean, they're about the size of a small pig, or aren't they?
Yeah, that's probably the best reference point is like maybe a small dog, a small pig, something like that. But they're like these little nugget things. They'll just knock you over.
Are they rodents?
No,
No.
no.
Are they? What are they related to, or what are they in the family genus of?
Oh, I have no idea. But this is the animal that I was kind of talking about yesterday, where potentially this was the biggest land mammal Australia had in the prehistoric times, and this is potentially could have been confused for a bunyip or something like that back in the day, because these things were huge. They were the size of rhinoceroses. They were huge.
Wow, that would be a whole different story if they were that big. Then they would look like, because I mean bears. You look at a grizzly bear. Generally, they look kind of cuddly from afar, and if they're not being pissed, they're just doing their bear thing, and they can be pretty adorable. But I find it very interesting that once you get up close, of course, they're not as cute anymore. They become huge and daunting. But I think that would probably be the case for these things. It's like they're great as long as they're little, about the size of a pig. But if they got the size of a rhinoceros, that'd probably be terrifying.
Yeah, definitely. And you can see those things just like eating anything up.
Yeah.
They're machine.
Oh, they got the funniest damn teeth, though, don't they? I got to
Yeah.
put this back up here because that's the funniest smile ever. That's hilarious. Look at that. Look at that grin, ladies and gentlemen. That must be the school pictures for the wombat right there. That's just adorable. Hey, yeah, they're coming in. The new ones are coming in. Oh, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. That is a wombat, and we've had another wonderful tour into Australian lore and agriculture and their natural fauna. There's no predators other than crocs that are like 20 feet long, but other than that, there's no problem. Just run zigzag.
Yeah, that's it. And I guess the only other thing you'd have to watch out for is like a big kangaroo, because those things they're pretty dangerous. They can get really big too, and they kind of show off because like the way like a male kangaroo, especially like a big red kangaroo,
Mm-hmm.
will kind of impose people or other type of creatures is it flexes its biceps.
Oh yeah, I've seen pictures of that. You know, they're like totally Ving out and they're looking like a weightlifter. Yeah,
Yeah,
they're huge.
yeah. And I guess a little bit more regional to my area is the cassowary, the most beautiful looking bird. But if you got an eyesight of this thing, it will charge at you and pounce at you. Like the way these animals attack is terrifying. So if you want to look at the world's scariest but most beautiful bird, check out a cassowary.
How do you spell that?
Cassowary.
W cassowary. Oh,
Yeah,
let me see. Let's go to images here. Yeah, that is pretty, but they're horribly aggressive.
very super aggressive.
Oh wow, that is a really pretty animal though.
Mm.
Are they like emu size, or how big are these things?
Yeah, yeah, they're probably bigger than an emu, to be honest.
Oh Jesus, wow. Oh, they kind of look like a big kiwi, don't they?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That's a really good way of doing it.
Uh,
And they had this like big like fin on their head.
yeah. It does look like some out of Jurassic Park from the neck up. It's like, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
And just type in like cassowary attack picture, you'll see how this thing goes. They're maniacs.
Jesus. Attack pictures. All right. Oh, look at that one. Oh, it's all feet, huh? They just jump up and go all in with the feet, huh?
Yeah, and they have these huge talons. They're gigantic.
Oh God, that'll lay you right open, huh?
Yeah, yeah. So they're kind of like scattered all through the rainforest here. They're an endangered animal, but you know, you can run into one of those fairly easily up in my area.
Oh God, have you?
No,
Oh,
no, I haven't because I kind of know the areas to stay away from them. But
oh,
yeah, they will cut you up like there's no tomorrow.
yeah. I'm just showing the feet. They got some zoomed in on the feet here, and yeah, those are no joke. That's like
Mm.
that's like eagle talons, but on a big bird.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. And those things, they kick hard. They kick so hard.
Oh my God. Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. This has been a worldwide adventure, and Cade and I again are practicing the world record in social distancing as he is on the other side of the planet. So we should be safe. But I think we've done it, brother.
That's it. It's been great to be on again. It's always fun. If there's a silver lining to this whole self isolation thing, it's I got to come on the portal twice in a row.
You are the first person ever to be on consecutive days, other than Don,
Yeah.
but he's part of the show. So there you have it.
Well, I'm gonna get a T-shirt printed.
I survived the paranormal portal. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I guess that's going to wrap it up for us. Anything in closing, brother?
Go subscribe to Believe. You can find it on iTunes, Stitcher. What's the other platforms? Spotify. I should know that type of stuff.
Pandora.
Yeah, Oh, actually, no, we're not on Pandora.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not allowed to be on Pandora. But yeah, everywhere that you get podcasts, that's where you'll find us. Or just head to the website, believepod.com, and all the episodes are on there.
Yeah. Well, it's been a rare pleasure as always, sir. Thank you so much for coming in and helping me steer the SS portal through another journey. And I think it was a success, and I really appreciate your time. It's always a pleasure to talk with you. I mean, I've always enjoyed getting together and sharing our thoughts and bouncing ideas around. So thank you again. And ladies and gentlemen, thanks to all of you for being here. Thank you so much for all your love and continued support as we continue our journey through the paranormal portals. I'll be back tomorrow night with our very own Deborah Varner. We'll be doing psychic readings tomorrow night. So if you want a psychic reading, call in to the number that you'll see on your screen above my head under the words paranormal portal. Call in tomorrow, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, whatever that means to the time zone you're in. You'll have to make that equation, but it'll be a 2-hour show roughly. We may go into overtime on YouTube only. But definitely check it out. That'll be tomorrow night. So we hope to see you then. We love you all. Be good, be kind, be nice, take care of each other, help each other out, find the magic in every day, and remember to laugh as much as you can. And sweet dreams.